Hi, my name is Kevin and I collect old irons, and with me is my fellow collector Louisa. Today we are going to heat up and use some flat irons and some slug irons. Louisa has chosen some period style fabrics and we're going to see how this works.
Hey, let's go.
So we talked about the flat irons in a video taken about 2 years ago and about the slug irons in a video taken shortly thereafter. But nobody in this room, and probably very few iron collectors, have actually heated these and used them. So today we're going to give that a try. As many of you know, I am a scientist. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set this up in the general structure of an experiment. We will heat up 2 flat irons, 2 slug irons, and we will iron with these, and we will draw some conclusions and see how these compare. Most of these irons are from the 1860s and 1870s. We'll start with this, which is a pretty much classic flat iron. It's all one piece, it's all iron. This particular one, its provenance, its date is unknown, but I would say 1860s or so. It is labeled by OK, and there's a series of irons by this manufacturer. It has the number 6. That is not the weight, it's just merely the inventory number, I guess. The iron weighs about 5.43 pounds. This iron has a little bit of an unusual handle. And our second flat iron, patented by Phineas B. Hood in Milford, New Hampshire, 1867, and it has an innovation, a patented innovation, and that is that between the iron base and the iron handle there is a layer of soapstone. This layer intended to offer some insulation and maybe make the handle a little cooler. The soapstone is a bit thicker than our flat iron, but the overall weight of the iron, because soapstone is less dense, is 4.91 pounds. This iron is fairly common in New England, a little less common elsewhere in the United States, with value about $50. I have chosen 2 rather simple American slug irons. The European slug irons tended to have the door at the back and the slug would be inserted from the rear. But American slug irons tended to have a latch and a top that pulled off, and you could then take the slug out from the top. Now let's talk about our 2 irons here. This is labeled the Brown and Foster from Mount Morris, New York. There are other markings of these irons. Apparently various foundries, mostly in the northwest New York region, made these. And this is the Bless and Drake Salamander iron, probably 1890s, maybe into the early 1900s, and it was patterned after an iron very popular in England that time and somewhat before. It has a side latch, there is a shield, and a wood handle to help insulate the handle from the hot base. And again, you have a slug that you pull out, put this in, and you're ready to go. And now let's meet our fabric. Louisa?
Hello. We're going to talk about fabric. In the 1860s, when these irons were being used, appearance was everything. It was very important to wear stylish clothing, and the style of the clothing was this very complicated pressing. Ironing and culture are all very tied together, and these irons are also very tied up with fabric. The fabrics that were available at the time were wool, silk, linen, which is made from flax, and cotton. Today we're going to use cotton. We have here fabrics that have reproduction prints, and also the colors are typical of the time of the irons. This is very interesting fabric. We've sprinkled it so that it's damp, so it's ready to be ironed. And this green fabric at the time had been made from Scheele's green. This was later discovered to be cupric arsenite, which was deadly and caused arsenic poisoning. So this color was abandoned. So this particular green is an attempt to duplicate that color. That color is now fondly called poison green. So I picked poison green for one. This one is shirtweight or dress weight material. And this fabric is somewhat bland color, but it is about 50, is at least 50 years old. And the stuff that the color is printed on, the cotton, the base cotton, called the green stuff, is different from the green stuff of these modern fabrics. So I'm using this with the irons because perhaps they would iron differently on this older cotton. So let's put the fabric to the test, and may the best iron win.
So we are now going to heat these up and we're going to iron with them.
Yes!
Okay, so we have the irons back here. This is the welcome mat to protect the wood here. The irons are very hot, and I'm going to ask Louisa to talk about the fabric, and we will compare these.
Okay, so A is the flat iron over here on the far side, and B is the soapstone iron. C is this one, and D is the salamander. So as you can see, the quality of the ironing of A and B is much better. And C and D had difficulty pressing the wrinkles out. This may have something to do with not letting them heat up long enough. So there may be some technical reasons for this. But remember, this is modern fabric. This is not old fabric, and these irons were designed for old fabric. So let's look at the old fabric. So here we have the old fabric, A, B, C, and the D part is really over here, not right under the D. And here there's more uniformity because we allowed the slug irons to heat up longer before we use them. And also, this is old fabric, so this fabric is about 50 years old. So that may have something to do with why the irons work better.
I will remind you that this is in the guise of a scientific experiment, but the conclusions here are subjective rather than objective. And these will be based on our experience, and the judge here is Louisa. So, Louisa.
Okay, so this plain old sad iron was very easy to use, very convenient, but you had to use a pot holder to pick it up, and you can imagine having to use that all day, or for hours, might be difficult and hot. And also, you'd have to stay near the stove, near where you're heating it up. This iron ironed just about as well. I'd say they ironed equally, but this one was a little cooler, but I still had to use a pot holder. This one I found difficult to use. I didn't have to use a pot holder, but it just didn't iron very well. It's hard to push it. Again, that may have something to do with its age or the condition of the rusting, but I did not like that one so much. This one was easier to use than this one, especially once we let it heat up. I think that it probably was more or less equivalent to these irons, but I could use the handle without using a pot holder. So clearly it was not as, would not have reflected as much heat onto my hand.
So, Louisa, which is the best overall iron in terms of ironing the fabric? This
That
one?
Yep.
And that is the soapstone iron. And which was the most convenient?
Well, I think putting in the slug was not convenient. So just simply pure convenience, I'd also say that one.
The soapstone iron wins again.
There you go.
Louisa, do you have any final comments?
Well, I can see why this one was invented. The slug, having numerous slugs all heated up at the same time means that you could iron in a different room away from the hot stove and then just go get another slug when it cooled down. And you couldn't do that with those two. So I think in the long run, this might have been the best contender for convenience.
Okay, so thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe and add your comments, and we will be doing these kinds of exercises, I think, with some other irons in the future.
That'll be fun.